Hello, SCP Universe, and welcome to another episode of SCP Cafe. This is 2019, Week 2. I'm your host, Blue Soul, SCP Wiki moderator, chat operator, subreddit moderator, author, loving husband, dog fan, and so on. We have an awesome week of skips this week. 13 of them were in scope for week 2. Getting this down to 7 was incredibly difficult. So before I get to those 7, I want to give a little shout out to the 6 that didn't make it, because there were no bad entrants this week in the positives. I could have spoken about any of these, but you know, the tough decisions have to get made sometimes, and I decided on 7 I wanted to run with for the week. So the 6 that didn't get covered are SCP-4940 Continuity Anchor, written by Oran OS. This is currently only at +3, was a really good skip. It had to do with a laboratory that has created this anomalous item that can roll around and burrow into flesh and essentially possess the brain and body of animals and then humans. This progresses pretty naturally through test logs, and we eventually get to an interview with the entity doing the possessing. All in all, very good. I think it's highly underrated at +3. SCP-4177, 50% off, written by Malice Aforethought, currently at +35. Pretty short skip. It has to do with advertising weight loss, and you will lose exactly half your mass. And the twist we have at the end is that a identical clone of yourself can be found, killing the original. Or actually, not sure who's who, but it splits your mass in half, creates an identical clone of you, and one kills the other. SCP-4369, the Cassandra Effect, written by Dr. Kujimura, and has to do with anomalous broadcasts coming from a cabin, and the broadcasts seek out and compel certain, single males with estranged families, and prophesize of catastrophic events happening in small towns, and the person will invariably decide, I know what I have to do, and they go take the mic, and at that point these prophesized things come to pass. There's a really good record of MTF Epsilon 6 Village Idiots going in and trying to take over the place. All in all, really good. I think it's underrated at +9. It is a little derivative, I think, of some earlier Series 1 works that have to do with prophecies and preventing them from coming to pass, but all in all, still very well done. SCP-2348, Sky, written by 9volt, includes a picture of a cloud. This whole thing is short and sweet, and doesn't get too into any real narrative, but has to do with a small cloud that has not moved at any point in recorded history, and has a nice little twist at the end where the cloud changes its shape, and we become very concerned with regards of the liquids that are coming out of the cloud. And entities claiming to be the sky must be neutralized on site. This was one I really wanted to get to, but just a casualty of the overall quality of the week. But this was really good as well. SCP-3794, Salsa Hammer, written by Werillium, which is currently at +42, is a hammer that, when swung at living tissue at sufficient force, converts that tissue to pico de gallo salsa. This skip technically fails the rule of thumb. It is shorter than my thumb when I put it up against it, but this is actually a really good throwback Series 1 piece. Really enjoy it, and, well, it's a quick read. I think you'll like it. And lastly, SCP-4441, Summer Scare, written by Hodari, is a really cool little idea of an anomalous creature that is anti-memetic and also possesses the ability to create documentation set in the future about a different SCP that must be contained at all costs, and it turns out that this is actually a totally, if not, not dangerous, it's at least only sort of your garden variety anomalous creature that just happens to know a lot about the inner workings of the Foundation and has created this sort of fictional SCP-6762. Really liked the twist of this at the end. I didn't see it coming. Has quite a bit of documentation. All in all, really, really well done. So those 6 didn't make the cut this week, and it is just due to time constraints. This podcast is probably going to push an hour and a half as it is, so really sorry to those that didn't get included. I thought everything this week was really good, but some of them I just had to include, and the ratings overall this week were really high. 6 different skips above plus 50, which is kind of forces my hand, Now, 2 of them that I included in this are under plus 50, one of them being a first-time author piece. So I hope you enjoy the ones that I did decide to run with for this week as well, because they are, to me, the best that this week had to offer. So starting things off, we have SCP-4734-EX. This is an explained skip, and it's called It Was Inside You All Along. It was written by Othello the Cat about 5 days ago. You're greeted with an image of a, looks like a kitchen countertop with a fruit bowl and a juicer that reads SCP-4734-EX prior to containment. We have an object class of explained, as you would assume. And the containment procedures indicate that it was previously stored in a standard anomalous item locker, but is now located in the Site-117 break room for staff use. And that's the entirety of the procedures. Normally with these explained, you can kind of run through those pretty quick because we've determined we don't have much that needs special containment. We go on to describe the skip as a mechanical juice press capable of creating a variety of juices and blended smoothies with any fruits or vegetables inserted in its apparatus, and that it was created by a POI, Gregory, also Greg, in quotes, Francis, as if that is his middle name, is also Greg. He is described as an artist responsible for 2 other black-boxed SCPs and several other destructive anomalous art pieces. The skip was created by hand using mundane materials and is noted to be durable enough to juice fruits and vegetables even with particularly tough skin or flesh. But we've inspected the skip and deemed that it is entirely non-anomalous, as the durability can be recreated using certain alloys of materials. And the POI has claimed that this juicer is the inspiration behind most of his recent pieces, including several objects that the Foundation's currently containing. So we go from that description into an addendum. It's the only addendum in the piece, and it's an interview between a doctor from the Foundation and the POI. So, it's understood that the POI has been sort of detained, and we're conducting this interrogation with the POI. So there's a little back and forth between the doctor and the POI, where he's, the POI is very dismissive and, indicates we don't even understand the importance of what we've contained, and that we pointed out that we received an anonymous tip saying that the juicer had the ability to alter concepts, and the POI, after a little while, explains, "Oh, it's simple, really. Just think about something you want to focus on, make some juice with that juicer, and everything you think about is instantly sharper, more focused in your head. It will let you see things that you never thought of before." And the doctor says, "Are you telling me that you just think about something, make some juice, and then he gets cut off?" The POI says, "And then have my third eye opened and create art that the world's never seen before?" "That's correct." And the doctor starts laughing at him. And, or maybe not laughing at him, but he is, trying to stifle a laugh. And the punchline here is that the doctor tells the POI that this explains why none of our tests were able to pick up anything anomalous about it. It's a really well-made juicer, and we put a whole durian in there and turned it into a thin liquid, but Mr. Francis, you just built a juicer. And the POI says, nah, you're just doing it wrong. You're not thinking about things the right way. The doctor says, Mr. Francis, do you know what a placebo effect is? And the POI kind of has the wind taken out of his sails, said, it's not fake, it's real, I know it is. Y'all are doing it wrong, you've got to be. And the doctor says, well, alternatively, thanks to all those fruits and vegetables that you drink on a supposedly daily basis, you lead a healthy lifestyle. That lets you think more clearly and focus on your work. And the POI, gets angry and said, no, I'll do it, I'll show you, it's not all in my head, the thing is real. The doctor said, sure, personally, I think you just like juice. And the POI was restrained to prevent any attempts at escape, was escorted to a holding chamber. The POI tried to do some tests to show how it works, and none of the tests result in any anomalous properties manifesting. And approximately 2 hours after testing was concluded and POI 8675 was left alone in his holding cell, he was reported to have exclaimed, "It's just fucking juice." End article. The explained skips are some of the hardest to do because it has to, I would say they're actually quite a bit more difficult than jokes, because you have to find something that is sufficiently anomalous to catch the Foundation's attention, but also has a prosaic, non-anomalous explanation for it. And this did it really well. I haven't seen this particular approach of the entire thing is just a hot tip and a placebo effect. Not a ton to really deconstruct here, and that's also part of the nature of these EXs, but it doesn't necessarily have to. I actually really like this from an immersion perspective. We don't have to bring in any GOIs or anything, but it's solid, it's well constructed, and this was a very easy +1, and this was actually the highest rated skip of the week, so I was not alone in my assessment. Moving on, we have SCP-4065, titled The Customer is Always Right, and it was written by Arcade0416. This is, as far as I can tell, this author's first contribution to the wiki. It's currently sitting at +16, and I'm going to tell you it is underrated at +16 right now. There is no picture to be found at the top of the page. In fact, there is no picture at all in the article. We have an object class of Euclid and containment procedures that indicate that the skip, the ownership of it, has been purchased by a Foundation front company titled Sammy's Consumer Palace, and the skip is to be continuously closed to the public via a cover story involved renovation for a new grocery chain. Any civilian to attempt to enter the building must be detained, debriefed, and administered amnestics before being released, well before they make contact with any instances of the -1. Remains of -1 instances found within the building are to be identified within the structure prior to disposal. There's actually quite a few containment procedures here. It more than fills up the page on my screen. My favorite thing about them is this little bit that says, "At no point should any reference be made to the asshole upstairs." The asshole upstairs is in italics, and it's consistent with that throughout this piece. But it says, "At no point should any reference be made to the asshole upstairs by any other title or alias in either speech or writing. The phrase 'the asshole upstairs' has been authorized for use in official Foundation material in order to provide information about the asshole upstairs while avoiding a nomenclature breach. Personnel working with SCP-4065 are to be informed regarding the nature of the asshole upstairs by Level 4 personnel who are also working with SCP-4065. If for any reason the asshole upstairs should manifest, one of two protocols is to be enacted dependent on whether or not the asshole upstairs manifests within or outside of the building." It's this sort of semantic diversion of using the asshole upstairs without making any reference of what that really means is something I actually really like. So we have the protocols, and more or less that, the asshole upstairs is no joke. If he breaches containment, it's a big deal. The description indicates that SCP-4065 is a former grocery store in the town of Black Box, Illinois, and the store is named Big Papa Porky's Grub Zone. Advertising material and in-store materials state that the building is one of several in a chain, with other locations supposedly existing throughout the Midwest, but we have not yet found any under the name or linked to this skip in any way at all. We also note that the store contains no fire suppression, fire extinguishers, security cameras, television screens, or telephones. And rather than aisles containing standard grocery items, the aisles of this building are made up of a mix of standard items as well as items that would not be normally sold, with the number of items being either illegal or anomalous in nature. And in addition, many of the items sold are well below projected market values, with some going as low as 6% of the original value of the item. So we have a list below that of 10 aisles and their names and the contents. So they're anything from a very standard baking section with cake mixes and cooking utensils and pie crusts and so on, to a pet section that starts out okay with dog and cat food, litter, chew toys, and so on. But it also includes large plastic containers containing chunks of human flesh, live rats, dead fish, and several samples of redacted. We have a candy section that includes a large amount of candy items. None of them have any company branding at all. Examples include large chocolate bars simply labeled chocolate bar, and packs of mint chips simply labeled mint circles. Consumption of any item in this aisle invariably results in a massive increase of energy via the sudden acquisition of 5 black boxes milligrams of caffeine, so somewhere between 10 and 100,000 milligrams of caffeine, which is more than enough to kill you. But that much caffeine and sugar, regardless of how much of a product from this aisle is actually consumed, it's followed by sporadic increases in the rate of tooth decay in the individual who consumed an item, inevitably resulting in a full loss of all teeth, and following that, the loss of the lower jaw over a random period of time ranging anywhere from days to months. There is a kill section that includes weapons from different eras: revolvers, hunting rifles, submachine guns, plastic explosives, swords, knives, grenades, power tools, sniper rifles, civilian-grade firearms, redacted, barbed wire, sandbags, vials of deadly neurotoxins, etc. However, the aisle contains no ammo, and most of the items are faulty or function at less than optimal levels. There's a bread aisle, and the entire aisle is made up of loaves of Porky's bread. The loaves are indistinguishable from loaves of any regular white bread, but notably on top of all the price tags, there is no price, and instead the word "no" is displayed, and instances of -1 refuse to sell bread from aisle 8 to customers under any circumstances, and bread removed from SCP-4065 results in a manifestation of the asshole upstairs. All in all, this is a really good throwback sort of list. It's very entertaining, but this is a really long skip, so I'm gonna kind of breeze. I'm gonna kind of let the rest of it go, and we'll keep going here. The description continues. It says that individuals that enter the building are able to remember that they took a trip to the store, but can't remember much in the way of specific details regarding their visit after they exit. We spend a couple of sentences on this, and we actually come back to it later, and I feel like it does make it drag down a bit because it doesn't really lend anything else to the piece, this little addition of being unable to recall much about the visit. There's an employees only area, and any individual who enters that area will disappear, and radio contact fails completely. Individuals who do enter will subsequently reappear as an instance of -1 after a period of time ranging from 2 to 3 weeks. The -1s are now explained as the collective classification given to workers who inhabit 4065, who inhabit this grocery store. They resemble human individuals with ages ranging from 16 to 19 years old on average, though outliers exist, the oldest recorded instance being 35 and the youngest being 14. They all have similarities with individuals who've gone missing in the area. However, and the names on their tags don't match up with those of the missing persons. And instances of the -1 all wear bright red button-up shirts with long sleeves, fitted blue jeans, plastic clip-on name tags, and plastic masks resembling the cartoon pig mascot that SCP-4065 is named after, evidently called Big Papa Porky. And -1 instances are unable to remove their masks through any means. Any efforts to remove the masks have been met with failure, even during autopsies of deceased instances. I like that inclusion. Instances do not voice discomfort against efforts to remove the mask, but they do exhibit body language consistent with anxiety or panic, with testing of vital signs during those attempts supporting this observation. And -1 instances are described as friendly, considerate, kind, and happy. Interviews of D-class and personnel assigned to explore the building result in them universally describing that they enjoyed their stay within the grocery store as well as interacting with these employees. So we then go on to say that these -1 employees will obey any command given to them by an individual who's entered from outside the building, treating them as a customer. And they will obey commands even when said commands will result in severe maiming or death of themselves or other employees. And through continued interviewing of employees, it's been determined that prior to Foundation involvement, -1 instances accepted commands, including but not limited to fist-fighting other employees, killing other employees, dancing, singing, telling jokes, taking a nap, checking the time, checking the weather, crying, giving 35 coupons to a customer, allowing a customer to leave with 57 cans of sliced peaches without paying, swallowing a whole eggplant in under 30 seconds, placing all of a customer's items in one paper bag without it breaking, dying, committing suicide, and performing the Pledge of Allegiance. Quite a list. These employees will not accept commands that would likely result in the harm or death of another customer or require them to exit the building. They will also not accept requests to remove any part of their uniforms, reacting with particular alarm to any request to remove their masks. So I like, in particular, the body horror that we've built up, that these masks are, permanently, so permanently attached that even through an autopsy we can't take them off. These cartoon pig masks, that is kind of the stuff of nightmares. I think that's a great visual. And if these -1 employees are physically unable to fulfill a request within the aforementioned guidelines, they will transform into a pile of dust, and this also occurs if they step outside the building for any reason. Analysis of the resulting powder concludes that it's made up of a mixture of breadcrumbs, garlic powder, onion powder, sugar, and ashes. The instances of -1 appear to be physically unstable, and they will slowly develop a number of harmful medical symptoms without concrete origin, including but not limited to intense nausea, vomiting, coughing, heart palpitations, temperature imbalances, increased bone fragility, etc. And instances with these symptoms typically survive for a period of, we've got 2 single-digit black-boxed months before all vital signs cease and the instance collapses. And these instances will never ask for assistance or acknowledge the existence of their ailments, and employees who die in this manner, rather than due to failing an order, will not transform into dust, but instead remain as solid corpses. And after 1 month of time has passed, a -1 instance identical to the deceased instance will emerge from one of the employees' only areas. -1s who transformed into dust will not be resurrected in this manner. If at any point the asshole upstairs manifests within SCP-4065, -1 instances will enter a panicked state, where they will begin attempting to put as much distance between themselves and the asshole upstairs as possible, often injuring themselves or others in the process in their haste. -1 instances may even attempt to exit 4065 entirely during their panicked state. The panic state typically lasts up to 2 hours after the asshole upstairs has ceased a period of manifestation. We finally have Addendum SCP-4065-01: the asshole upstairs. And due to the risk associated with dissemination of information regarding this nomenclative hazard, the following material requires level 4 clearance. And we go on to explain behind this collapsible that the asshole upstairs refers to an entity residing in the upstairs office. We probably could have assumed that much. The door to the office cannot be opened normally or through the use of force, and personnel have stated they feel uneasy when standing near the door, and they've heard sounds similar to pigs grunting, although the sound is reportedly slightly distorted. The asshole upstairs, when referred to by any other title, name, or even through the use of personal pronouns, will manifest near the individual doing so, rendering the asshole upstairs a nomenclative info hazard. Describing the attributes and appearance of the asshole upstairs does not seem to bring about this effect. So we're kind of carefully building the asshole upstairs and how you can only refer to him in this manner if you're trying to refer to them as a person. If you try to describe how they look, then you don't trigger this effect. And the asshole upstairs, much like instances of -1, dressed in a red shirt, jeans, an irremovable cartoon pig mask, and possesses a name tag, although theirs is blank. The asshole upstairs is much larger than any instances of SCP-4065-1 with a height of 2.4 meters, and if memory serves, that's going to make him about 7'6". Is that right? 7'10". Darn it, I was close. Okay, so he's 7'10" and has the ability to apparently teleport, albeit not instantaneously. It takes 30 seconds to 8 minutes, depending on the distance from the building, to manifest. We've collected logs and testimony from witnesses, and both have shown that the asshole upstairs is impatient, temperamental, prone to fits of rage, and generally hostile. When the asshole upstairs manifests as a result of being addressed by any name other than the asshole upstairs, they will begin conversing with the individual responsible, similar to how someone in charge of a grocery store would come to resolve a dispute or answer a customer's question. This conversation can take many forms, but it will invariably result in the asshole upstairs stating that the asshole upstairs and the individual responsible for summoning the asshole upstairs should have a chat in the upstairs office. Following this, the asshole upstairs will grab the target individual and both will vanish. The target individual will later emerge from the employees only area as a -1 employee. We have a paragraph in here that explains that Foundation staff seem to be somewhat exempt to this rule, and this is because the asshole upstairs has indicated that the Foundation as a whole is some of our store's best customers, and may or may not abduct their employees as a result. And this has about a 60% chance of avoiding abduction by virtue of being a Foundation employee. Any attempt to remove an aisle 8 item, which was the bread, will also result in a manifestation of the asshole upstairs. So one of the things that I've noticed in this particular work is there is simply too much detail. It explains too many things that wouldn't have been asked, and it serves to slow the work down and for really not any benefit. We go to a set of interview logs between D-Class and an employee named Jimmy, where Jimmy is the employee and really likes working there and gives the D-Class 2 95% off coupons, and bids our D-Class farewell with "Have a porky evening." We go from there to an interview between a doctor and a D-Class, and then from another D-Class to the employee. Finally, we have an agent doing an audio log, and it, going into that information loss, and he says the fateful words, "Weird how we haven't seen a black box yet." The asshole upstairs enters this interview and says, "You rang?" A gun discharging can be heard along with sounds of a scuffle, and after several moments, Agent Julius lets out a yell and the recording stops abruptly. I will point out, the black box is 7 characters, which would line up with manager, which is what I would put in there. So we then go to a log back with the manager and the first doctor trying to figure out whether or not Agent Julius is now somewhere in the building. And the asshole upstairs replies, "Look, dickwad, I'm not going to go out of my way to keep track of every loser who decides it's a fun idea to wander their dumb asses into the back rooms. Why don't you go and look for yourself instead of fucking bothering me? I'm busy." And and the doctor says, "Excuse me?" And into the headset says, "This is Kimball. We have a situation at the front end of the store. Unidentified -1 instance exhibiting strange behavior." And the asshole upstairs replies, "I can see you're the type of dude who's going to go and make a whole federal goddamn issue out of it. Fine, let's go to my office." Asshole upstairs grips Dr. Kimball tightly. The audio-video feed cuts off. And sometime following the incident, Dr. Kimball reemerged as an instance of a -1 employee, and the decision was made that Foundation staff would no longer be permitted to enter SCP-4065. And lastly, we have some more addendums with some individual notes, presumably from a personal journal found in a garbage bin at the back of one of the checkout lanes that appear to be written by an employee. And it looks like every so often, as they write it down, the asshole upstairs must be interrupting them. And this is where we end the article. So I've been going into this article for a long time now, and that's because there's a lot of detail in here, and that works against this piece at times. I think you could cut a lot of fluff in this that doesn't really benefit anything. For example, the whole thing about the information loss, that you can't remember it for a while. It doesn't really come back. I get you might want to explain that this is why it exists in the area. You remember you went to the grocery store, so maybe there's an element of believability to it, but it doesn't buy you anything beyond that. And your reader's attention is a currency. There's only so much of it that they're willing to give you in exchange for your work. And every time you sidetrack it with something like this, I think it is, you do so at your risk, because there's a lot to cover in this, and you can stick to the high points and just flat out omit a number of these things. You could honestly omit the fact that they transform into dust and that the corpses and this, that, or the other. The bit with the Foundation employees not necessarily being abducted, and just take the core things that drive the story, leave the rest of it out. More is not always better. That said, I still really like the work. But I wanted to bring this one up in particular because for it being a first-time piece, it gets a lot of things right. I think the tone in it throughout is excellent, but it also it shows that there's, I feel like a more experienced writer that has gotten more feedback on the work would hear that. Like, these passages, these things aren't doing anything for it. This final addendum doesn't really add anything at all. And the piece would be better if it was honestly around half the length it is now. All that said, this is still a +1. I still want to see more from this writer in the future. Moving on, we have SCP-4450 titled Sometimes Things Break, and this was a co-write between Dr. Ayers and Gabriel Jade, and this was a ClichéCon entry, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to do this justice in this format because the presentation of the final collapsible is absolutely beautiful. The CSS work that is done on this, the animations, everything are absolutely mind-blowing. And I actually had my mind blown today too on another one that we'll cover in next week's pod, but suffice it to say, you need to see this, SCP-4450. So we are greeted with a picture in black and white that says SCP-4450 Alpha and Beta, and it is two adult males, I would say, probably in their early 40s, both with dark hair and old-timey suits and big mustaches, and otherwise clean-shaven. So we have an object class of Keter, and containment procedures that indicate that arrival of Alpha and Beta. Appearances are to be immediately reported to the site director alongside any on-site O5 council members, and Alpha and Beta are asked to await their arrival. Any requests for readily available sums of money made by Alpha or Beta during this time are to be granted. Interesting. Once the site director or an O5 council member arrives at Alpha or Beta, they are considered to be the point of contact until Alpha or Beta demanifest, and all personnel are to divert any further requests to the point of contact. Investigation into the method of accessing -1 is to continue until entry is successfully achieved. So we've got an Alpha and Beta, which are the men, and a -1 that we are attempting to access, but otherwise is not referenced in the containment procedures. So we go from there to the description that says that Alpha and Beta are Caucasian males always observed wearing black and gray suits respectively. Alpha and Beta refer to one another as brothers and often address each other by name, with Alpha being called Chris and Beta being called Beryl. Alpha and Beta both speak in a very informal style, often couched in thinly veiled threats. These threats often revolved around property damage, and the scale of the threats increased based on the number of missed payments. So we've got a little racket going on here. And the only method of preventing destructive behavior is through the offer of sufficient payment of physical currency. After which, Alpha and Beta behave significantly more cordially for a time, approximately 6 months. Alpha and Beta claim to be agents of an unspecified employer and express desire to collect payment for property damage suffered by their employer. Alpha and Beta describe the damage being a nuclear attack upon a structure resembling an extraplanar pocket dimension designated -1. So there's our -1, it's a pocket dimension. So we're trying to gain access to that pocket dimension. Further details regarding the nature of the Dash 1, as well as methods of accessing Dash 1, are still being investigated. Alpha and Beta have displayed a number of anomalous properties, including the capability to spontaneously manifest or demanifest to and from any location, speed, strength, and durability far beyond human maxima, and prolonged high-speed flight. So these are basically sticking us up every so often, and we are going along with it because they seem to be capable of backing up their words. We go to an incident log in Addendum 2 featuring MTF Omega 7, Pandora's Box. Haven't seen an Omega 7 feature in a long time. Even for ClichéCon, this is the first time I've seen Omega 7, and I thought I was going to see a bunch of them, given that the one of the categories was that a highly trained MTF gets steamrolled. Pandora's Box is the one that, you think of when you think highly trained. And so we know it's ClichéCon. We've seen Omega 7. We know what we know so far about the skip. This may not go well for our intrepid heroes. So we have 5 members on the team. 4 members on the team and a team lead, including 0762, Abel, and the 2 of them are looking out over a GOC compound that is been reduced to an extensive field of concrete and rubble. 4 crashed assault helicopters and 13 dead GOC personnel are visible within the degree. And Abel notes that Alpha and Beta are levitating about 30 meters above ground, and Alpha and Beta vanish and reappear on the ground about 20 meters from Omega 7. So Alpha speaks up and says, "Oi, are you lads here to pay for the damages? They said they was sending for someone, but we got tired of waiting. You lads know how it is. Accidents happen." And Abel leaps forward, manifesting a 2-meter-long sword, swings it towards Alpha. Alpha's left arm repositions between frames of the video feed and intercepts Abel's attack. And despite fully halting the swing, he shows no signs of physical exertion. Beta says, "Are you lads trying to start something while we're just trying to collect an honest debt here? Now that's just a shame, isn't it, Chris?" Alpha says, "Terrible shame, Beryl, trying to get out of paying like that." Alpha clenches its fist, shattering Abel's weapon. Abel manifests a pair of 1-meter-long swords, and Alpha similarly repositions both of its arms to intercept the attacks. And Beta says, "You best watch out, mate. My brother gets upset when people try dodging their debt. Things tend to break when people get upset, don't they, Chris?" Alpha says, "That's right, Beryl, that's right. Shame how people never learn their lesson." Alpha's left hand strikes through Abel's left arm, severing the extremity above the elbow. Abel stabs towards Alpha with the blade in its right hand. Alpha's right hand punches the blade, shattering the weapon and crushing Abel's right arm. Whew. So Abel, they shout him down, tell him to withdraw. Omega 7 give him covering fire. They open fire on Alpha and Beta. No damage is present on either of them. Alpha delivers a blow through Abel's midsection, then kicks it aside, delivers a blow through Abel's midsection. Abel collapses and attempts to rise, displaying symptoms of acute shock. Beta walks toward Omega 7 Wilbur and says, "This is a lovely little group you've got here, Captain. Surely you'd be very troubled if something happened to it." Alpha disappears from frame. Omega 7 Lucy screams briefly, and camera turns to show Omega 7 Lucy lying on the ground, bleeding from a wound to the lower back. Beta says, "Well, looks like my brother's being clumsy, Captain. You might want to figure out where to get us our money, Captain." Omega 7 one of the team lead here says, "Stop, goddammit. All right, you can take our dropship. It's worth a few $100 million easy." Alpha and Beta look at each other. Beta shrugs and nods, said, "That's a little light, but I guess it'll do for now. Hurry on back to your bosses. We'll be back soon." And Alpha withdraws a photograph from within its suit and drops it on Abel. And Alpha says, "Here's something to remember us by, soldier. Come see us when we get back, if you've managed to pull yourself back together." And Alpha and Beta board dropship Omega 7. Alpha can be seen muttering something, and Alpha, Beta, and dropship Omega 7 dematerialize and log. We go from there to Addendum 3, further information, and it reads, "Ryza collation of relevant information is still ongoing." And this link actually takes you to an offset page. And this is what I was referring to. the work done in this offset page of a Ryza terminal is gorgeous. One thing I will take significant issue with, though, is, I'll put, you guys know me, I'm putting my IT nerd hat on. The command prompt indicates a current path of C:\\SCPF\Ryza. There's no way in hell Ryza runs on Windows. No way in hell. That said, we'll move on. It has, basically, it handles all of the input into this terminal for you. That we're doing a tag search, and we tag 3 tags: gambling, teleportation, humanoid. And we find one result that meets all 3 of those tags, and it's this skip 4450. And we have 4 additional results for gambling and teleportation without humanoid, and they link to 4 GOI formats. And then lastly, we have 1 additional result, overseer clearance required, and this is a Foundation GOC termination order. So these are all part of this work. There's a GOI format from the GOC, there's one from the GOC, one from Marshall Carter and Dark, one from Chicago Spirit, and one from Serpent's Hand. And each one of these builds up the backstory specifically about -1, the pocket dimension, rather than Alpha and Beta, who've been thoroughly introduced at this point. So we start with, and I'm going to try to run through these really quick, that we start with a GOC document regarding UTE 0591 Flint Parallax, quote, casino builder. And this essentially reads that the GOC figured out how to gain entry, and at that point the strike team was deployed, and they cleared out remaining Chicago Spirit and Marshall Carter and Dark assets from the location and took over it. They attempted to destroy a locked door, and we end up, the weapons division has developed a weapon that will, according to them, take care of this door. It reads, development is complete on, I'm going to just call it the weapon. I don't care how tight you say that door is shut, this son of a bitch will crack it. Of course, it might also crack the entire dimensional structure, so I recommend moving all non-essential persons from the premises. Just make sure you put a few dozen doors between you and the charge before you set it off. And, the correspondence then reads that this thing's a lot bigger than I pictured. My brother and I are going to remain behind while the charge goes off. Everyone else is busy getting the place cleared out. Though between you and me, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this bad boy takes out not just the door, but whatever's behind it too. We go from there to a Marshall Carter and Dark GOI format, basically laying out that this is this casino is what we would presume to be R-1, and we call it the Void Resort. And it's an establishment drifting through the depths of the cosmos, and services include catering, gambling, entertainment, and legal advice. The initial report in this GOI format is dated October 12th, 1925. The Chicago Spirit alerted Marshall Carter and Dark to the presence of the building, and they requested funds to perform an armed takeover from its original owners. MC&D drafted a contract guaranteeing exclusive access rights to the establishment, and those terms were accepted by Chicago Spirit. And basically, they co-run this building, and there's a little record of room rentals and guests and betting losses from the guests at the casino. And we go from there to the Chicago Spirit GOI format, which is done in a more colloquial way. They explain that to get to the casino, all you have to do is say the passphrase out loud, and you'll find yourself standing dead in the middle of our establishment. The passphrase isn't always a phrase. They can make it anything they want. And either way, if you need to get into the casino, ask the bosses. They'll tell you how. And they go on to say that Marshall Carter and Dark obviously know about the building, and they're paying top dollar for the passphrase. We let them walk around on the ground floor in the wine cellars, but you do whatever you can to keep those folks from poking their noses upstairs. That secret stays with the Spirit. And the only other people that we know have heard about it are the Serpent's Hand, and we're fairly sure they've given up hope on coming back to reclaim it. So the only way in is with the passcode, and they know they aren't going to find it. So we lastly go from there to the Serpent's Hand GOI format, which uses the Wanderer's Library. These have all used CSS in the right places. The Wanderer's Library in particular makes use of their logo and all that fun stuff, their CSS in the background and so on. So they describe a nexus, a set of infinite doors, and basically this nexus is pictured as a hallway. It looks like maybe an old school fancy hotel or something along those lines. And its caption reads, "A small section of the potentially infinite hallways of the Nexus of Ways." And it explains that the Nexus has no set loyalty. It will activate for any person who speaks the passphrase that has been set. However, due to the minute probability of the uninitiated uttering such a phrase without the knowledge being passed down by members of the Serpent's Hand, the Nexus can be said to align with the hand in a manner of speaking. Now, I did gloss over that the Chicago Spirit basically coerced some Serpent's Hand member to give them the passphrase, and that's what sort of kicked this all off. This was presumably with the Serpent's Hand for quite a period of time, and Chicago Spirit gets in and tries to take it over, signs a deal with Marshall Carter and Dark, and they take it over from the Serpent's Hand. So we finally go from all of that to the document that was indicated it was O5 level access only, and it begins with dialogue, and it's immediately obvious this is more from alpha and beta. So we've got a little quick change of pace here. We spent the last 4 articles building up the back canon of the -1 and how it works and how it came to be, and we then go back to alpha and beta, where one of them is saying, "Morning, overseers. Nice to have all the big shots in one place. I hope you don't mind if we smoke. Me and my brother are gagging for a cig." And some overseer says, "You can smoke." He says, "Well, that's awful kind of you, overseer. Smart move. Keep your business partners happy. I suppose that smartness is why you call the shots in this here foundation. Hey, I don't recognize any of you. I hoped I'd see some familiar faces up on that board." And the overseer says, "We think it's important to employ a dynamic hierarchical structure to promote a mobile work environment for all our employees. It helps with morale." Said, yeah, that's what I figured. So are you willing to do business with us?" Said, "What's your demand?" Now, overseers, I think you got a misunderstanding. This ain't a demand. This is us collecting our debt. You ought to know better by now. We're just businessmen. And the response is, "Businessmen that submerge islands when their debts aren't paid?" And he goes, "Oi, islands sink. Everything breaks after a time, don't they, Chris?" "Yeah, everything breaks sometime or another. And if you want to keep it that way, I think a little cash could go a long way." "How much?" "Well, seeing it like you numbskulls keep trying to paint us like crooks, I think 25 Bs are in order." "You're going easy on him, Beryl. Well, what can I say? I'm a lover, not a fighter. So I'm going to assume that's $25 billion. So we have a horizontal rule here, and then a thing from the desk of the O5 Council. "Ladies and gentlemen, attached to this note is a list of Alpha and Beta's demands over time, and the results of decisions resulting of our actions. The demands from these assholes are getting ludicrous. Our position is untenable. We can't keep dispensing 95% of each site's reserves every half a year. We're going to bankrupt ourselves by agreeing with them. Something has to be done, and it's signed O51. And we have a table here of when they have been spotted, their demands, what happened, and the results of what happened. So the first 3 were approved. This was the first one is the dropship Omega 7, and a month later they asked for another $200 million, indicating that this was the remainder owed. 6 months pass, and the demand is now $0.8 billion that was approved. Another 5 months pass, $1 billion was denied, and the barter attempt, we attempted to barter to reduce the amount to $800 million. The barter refused, and the Alpha and Beta demanifested, and 4 days after negotiations, Alpha and Beta were cited destroying areas of rural Canada. 7 days passed, and the demand was again $1 billion, and this was approved. We have several more accepted demands, and then they ask for $2 billion, which is denied. The point of contact refused to pay. 17 days after negotiations, 4450 instances were cited submerging small islands in the Atlantic Ocean. And 27 more days pass. The offer remains at $2 billion and was denied again. 1 month after negotiations, Alpha and Beta were cited targeting large city centers worldwide. 2 more months pass. The demand is now $14 billion, up from $2 billion. That was accepted. 6 months pass. $19 billion was also accepted. Alpha and Beta threatened to destroy all of Europe, and we cut from there to a recording between 0512 and a doctor that indicates that the doctor determined that the passcode could be changed. And we go back to dialogue where the Alpha and Beta are asking him, what's it going to be? Are we destroying Europe or not? We have another cut to an email from 0512's computer. The quartermasters have received one of the aforementioned weapon that the GOC built, which is titled an anti-thaumatologic shaped nuclear breaching charge. Notes, good men were in that facility. Give those assholes hell. We cut back to the dialogue. You've had your questions answered. Here's ours. Where's our money? That we're transferring it digitally. That no, Overseer, we've never used You know what, Chris? I don't think these guys are the real deal. And Chris says, nah, me neither. These guys have never had 25 Bs in their life. Well, sorry, Overseers. I'm feeling real clumsy all of a sudden. See you soon. They mutter, said, wait, something's going wrong. Why can't I cut to explosion? And we have another ruled line here and a Operation Sensible Budget in a block quote here, and it lays out an operation that MTF Row 0 pulls off, and it basically lays out that 13D class were trained to assume the roles of the O5 Council while to distract Alpha and Beta while this strike team went in to change the passcode for the -1 entry. And this thermonuclear device was detonated and potentially, rendering them vulnerable and maybe even terminating them. And finally, we have MTF Row 0's report, 1652, received code Amber, exiting covert infiltration and proceeding with the operation. 1701, Thaumic Divining Probe activated, malleable, type blue, pseudo-way invocations detected, beginning analysis. 1706, analysis complete, passcode successfully altered. 1708, rear entrance to employees only section opened. 2 humanoid male corpses appear on the casino floor, investigation ongoing. Automated message connection lost, and then 3 hours and change pass. Request, $25 billion cash. Reason, debt collection. End article. End series of articles. But man, oh man, what a journey this skip is. Now, the implication with the end of this is really striking. I didn't piece this together, actually. I had to go to the author because I figured I wasn't quite getting this the way they meant to put it out there. But, so the implication with the ending, request $25 billion cash, reason, debt collection. We established that Alpha and Beta are working for somebody else to collect a debt, to be, the enforcers for a debt collection. And we have the rear entrance that's been this big secret that's, been kept among, 3 or 4 GOIs. And we finally breach it with an elite strike team. 3 hours pass, about 3.5 hours, and all of a sudden, this MTF is asking for $25 billion cash to settle a debt. So the MTF has brokered a deal with whatever entity is in that back room, and are basically now we have, instead of Alpha and Beta, we have a one of the SCP Foundation's finest mobile task forces in the same role. Probably not the desired outcome. This article overall is large enough that you can lose sight of everything that happened in it, because, and part of it I think is because we're used to the lengths of these being, shorter than this. So you have to pay a little more attention. There's a lot more going on than with the average work. The end of this thing is a bombshell, and we built a lot, and then this twist comes really out of nowhere because we didn't do much really explanation of what the entity behind the back room could be. Only we sort of hinted at it in the very beginning that, I hope this takes out this nuclear charge, takes out whatever entities behind that door as well. Well, that would have been for the best from the sounds of it. All in all, fantastic work from both of the writers here. This was really ambitious. It set out to connect a lot of GOIs that they would have worked together, or had, some GOI on GOI violence. It portrayed many different levels within the Foundation, and actually brought in Omega 7 in a way that makes perfect sense. And I can't remember the last time that's happened. So this was beautifully constructed, and very easy +1. And like I said, you need to see the work that was put into the Ryza terminal. It is absolutely outstanding. So we're at about an hour already, just getting through 3 skips. So I'm going to call this part 1 right now. When you see us on the other side for part 2, we're going to cover the other 4. We're going to cover 4955, 2304, 4637, and 4511. If you're subscribed to SCP Cafe via iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube, or our RSS feed, you'll get part 2 just a couple of hours after part 1 is posted. So we'll see you on the other side with the rest of week 2.